Book 5 of the Odyssey is called Odysseus, Nymph and Shipwreck. At last, for 4 books, we've heard about Odysseus. His wife has been waiting for him for nearly 20 years. His son searches for news of him. Kings remember him as a great man. Stories of his courage and cunning echo across the Greek world. But the hero himself has been absent from our story. Finally, we meet him. And what is the first glimpse of Odysseus that Homer gives us? He's not fighting monsters or outwitting enemies. No heroics. He's sitting alone on the shore of a distant island, staring out across the sea, weeping for home. This moment is an example of how epic stories are often told. We are not meeting Odysseus at the beginning of his adventure. The Trojan War has already ended. His journey home has already lasted 10 long years. Stories like this are said to begin in medias res. This is a Latin phrase meaning in the middle of things. Many epic poems begin this way, dropping the audience into the story after events are already underway. Only later will we learn how Odysseus reached this lonely island. For now, we meet him at a moment of internal struggle. Odysseus is being held on the island of Ogygia by the beautiful nymph Calypso, who offers him something extraordinary: safety, comfort, even immortality. And yet every day he sits by the sea, longing for home. As we read Book 5, we will ask an important question about character motivation. Why would Odysseus choose danger, hardship, and uncertainty over a life of ease? But before we delve into his psychology, first, let's trace what happens in this chapter with an objective summary of the events. The book opens with another council of the gods on Mount Olympus. Athena reminds Zeus that Odysseus is still stranded on the island of Ogygia, held there by the nymph Calypso. Zeus agrees that it is time for Odysseus to return home and sends the messenger god Hermes to deliver the command that Calypso must release him. Hermes travels across the sea to Ogygia Island and delivers Zeus's message. Calypso is reluctant to let Odysseus go. She complains that the gods often punish goddesses for loving mortal men, but she agrees to obey Zeus's order. Calypso tells Odysseus he is free to leave. She offers him tools and materials so he can build a raft and begin his journey home. For several days, Odysseus works carefully and skillfully. He cuts down trees, shapes the wood, and builds a sturdy raft. Calypso provides food, water, clothing, and favorable winds for the beginning of his journey. Odysseus sets sail and travels safely for many days. But his journey does not remain peaceful for long. The sea god, Poseidon, who still holds a grudge against Odysseus, sees the raft and unleashes a violent storm. Enormous waves smash the raft apart, leaving Odysseus struggling to survive in the open sea. At this moment, the sea goddess, Ino, takes pity on him and gives him a magical piece of cloth to wrap around his waist that will help keep him afloat. Odysseus abandons the shattered raft and swims toward land. After a long and exhausting struggle in the water, he finally reaches the shore of a new island, the land of the Phaeacians. Book 5 ends with Odysseus collapsing in exhaustion beneath a pile of leaves, finally safe for the moment after surviving the storm. Now that we understand the events of the chapter, we can turn to this question about character motivation. Why does Odysseus choose to leave? From a practical point of view, his situation on Ogygia is not unpleasant. Calypso's island is beautiful. Calypso is beautiful. She provides food, shelter, and comfort. Most remarkably, she even offers Odysseus immortality, the chance to live forever as her companion. For many people, this would seem like an easy decision, but Odysseus refuses. Every day, we are told, he sits on the shore looking out across the sea, grieving for home. The ancient Greeks had a word for this powerful longing to return: Nostos. Nostos means homecoming, the deep desire after a long journey to return to one's homeland, family, and identity. One of our modern words comes from the same roots. Do you know this word, nostalgia? Nostalgia combines the Greek words nostos and 𝙧𝙤𝙤𝙮, which means pain. Nostalgia literally means the pain of wanting to return home. That feeling lies at the heart of the Odyssey. In fact, scholars refer to the Odyssey as a Nostos epic, where the story is about a journey home, as opposed to an epic about war. Homer's other great poem, the Iliad, would be an example of a war epic. It's really all about the events of the Trojan War. In a war epic, the characters might be motivated by surviving a battle, maintaining their honor, or gaining glory. In our story, Odysseus is not simply trying to survive or become a renowned warrior. Those days are over. He is driven by the desire to return to Ithaca, to reclaim his life as a husband and father and king. This makes his choice in Book 5 especially meaningful. Calypso offers safety, comfort, and eternal life. Odysseus chooses something far more uncertain, a dangerous voyage across the open sea. His motivation is not ease or pleasure, it's nostos, the powerful pull of home. It's worthwhile going very slowly through this passage where we first see Odysseus. How does Homer choose to present his hero? And what tools does he use to help make our first impression? We actually see him twice, almost like déjà vu. First, as for great Odysseus, Hermes could not find him within the cave. Off he sat on a headland, weeping there as always, wrenching his heart with sobs and groans and anguish, gazing out over the barren sea through blinding tears. After Hermes delivers Zeus's command to Calypso, the poem again shows us where Odysseus spends his days. Homer describes him once more in practically the same way, sitting on the shore of the island, looking out across the sea. Notice the imagery in this moment, especially versus other descriptions of life on Ogygia, which stopped Hermes in his tracks. He was so spellbound by the beauty and abundance of the place. The island isn't just pretty to look at. There's a cloud of fragrance. The cypress are pungent. There's clear, cool water to drink and bathe in. There are ripe grapes and lush parsley to eat. The use of imagery, all sorts of sense impressions, gives us a physical understanding that Ogygia is a paradise. But Odysseus is not relaxing in Calypso's beautiful home. He is not enjoying the comforts of the island. Instead, he returns again and again to the edge of the water, the place where the land ends and the journey home begins. The sea becomes a kind of a boundary between his two lives. Behind him is safety, a bountiful island with everything a man could ask for, and even immortality. In front of him is danger, uncertainty, and the long journey back to Ithaca. Homer also emphasizes Odysseus's emotional state. We are told that he weeps endless tears as he watches the sea, his eyes never dry. Day after day, the poem repeats this image, almost word for word, the hero sitting on the shore, grieving for home. This repetition is a deliberate choice by Homer. It shows that Odysseus's desire to leave is not sudden or impulsive. His longing has been building for years. The island may be beautiful, but it's not his home. It doesn't matter how perfect it is. It will never be home. Through this simple scene, a man sitting alone beside the sea, Homer makes the idea of Nostos visible. Odysseus is not motivated by fortune and glory. He's finished with all of that. He's motivated by a deep and persistent desire to return to his life at home. One thing that surprised me a little about this introduction to Odysseus is that Homer did not use one of his favorite techniques, the epic simile. He likes it so much, it's often called the Homeric simile. Much more common in literature is the use of the simple simile. That's a brief comparison using the words like or as. For example, a character might be described as brave as a lion. Homer might have said, Odysseus watched the sea like a hungry dog, but he didn't. And he certainly didn't use an epic simile, even though he uses it just a little earlier in this book for a much lesser character. The epic simile is a more elaborate form of comparison. It might begin with a simple simile, but then the description continues for several lines. It's a big pause in the storytelling, a big aside. The author stops whatever they're doing to take time to develop a vivid image before returning to the main action of the story. We can see this technique when Hermes travels to Calypso's island. Homer compares the god's flight across the sea to a seabird skimming over the waves in search of fish. The description lingers on the movement of the bird, the way it glides low over the water, searching the surface of the sea. For a while, the poem pauses to let us picture this natural scene. Then the description returns to Hermes himself, moving swiftly across the world to deliver Zeus's command. Epic similes like this serve several purposes. They create vivid imagery that helps the audience picture the scene. They slow the pace of the narrative for a moment, allowing listeners to absorb the action. And in a poem that was originally performed aloud, they gave the storyteller time to build rhythm and emphasis. It's also a way to make the story relatable. At least half of these epic similes relate to nature, things the audience had personal experience with. They may never have seen a god in person, but they've watched birds. Through these extended comparisons, Homer connects the world of gods and heroes to the natural world that his audience knew so well. You may feel like we just had a do-over. By the end of Book 5, the story of the Odyssey has truly begun. Again, for the first time in the epic, we have seen Odysseus in the flesh. Not the legend told by others, but the man himself, facing difficult choices. He is weary. He is far from home. It looks like the fight has gone out of him. The days of glory and conquest are in his past. He's left with just one thing that still drives him forward. Nostos, the longing to return home. That motivation shapes everything that follows. Odysseus refuses immortality. He leaves behind comfort and safety. Instead, he chooses the uncertain journey across the sea, guided by the hope that he might one day return to Ithaca. At the same time, this chapter reminds us that Odysseus's path will not be easy. He's the man of twists and turns. Poseidon's storm shatters the raft he has carefully built. The sea itself seems determined to keep him from home. Already we can see a pattern that will define the rest of the epic: perseverance in the face of danger. And so the poem moves forward. The Telemachy has prepared us to understand what Odysseus means to his family and his kingdom. Now, the epic turns its full attention to the wandering hero himself and the long road that still lies between him and home. When you read along with Socratica, that means you're sure to learn more. If you're ready for that challenge, our reader's guide will help you go further. You can try your hand at writing your own simile, then expanding it into an epic simile, the kind Homer uses to bring scenes vividly to life. You'll practice identifying character motivation and tracing how the idea of Nostos, the longing for home, shapes Odysseus's decisions. You'll also explore Homer's vivid imagery, looking closely at how the poem describes the sea, the storm, and the dangers Odysseus faces as he leaves the safety of Calypso's island. Take your time with the text. Look carefully at the language. Find the lines that matter, and cite them as evidence for what you observe. When you're ready, we'll continue the journey as Odysseus awakens on a new shore, still far from home.